Ali Zaidi, and today I'm going to be talking about cycles of history, parallels in Islamophobia. So, can anybody tell me what is Islamophobia to you? Anybody in the audience? What does it mean to you?
It's a fear of Islam because of its principle, its appearance, the way people represent it, so people perspective about Islam and its mostly strong.
Okay. Very good, very good. Anybody else? So the 1991 Runnymede Trust report stated that Islamophobia is actually the unfounded hostility towards Muslims and therefore fear and dislike of all or most Muslims. Basically that a fear of Muslims would echo throughout representations of all Muslims. So in the news and the media, you see images such as these: no more mosques in America, no Islam, no Sharia, no halal. We even got a Times front cover piece that says, "Is America Islamophobic?" And so I want to tie this into the civil rights movement and look at some of the parallels between that movement and what we see today. And so over here we have Martin Luther King Jr. and they're marching for awareness for the civil rights movement. And so can anybody tell me who this woman is? Very important in the civil rights movement. Correct. This is Rosa Parks. She was ejected from a bus because she refused to give her seat up to a white man. And now we have some Muslims who echoed this discrimination in transportation. And so these are two men who were ejected from a plane after a fellow passenger complained that they were speaking in Arabic and therefore were causing some sort of issue and commotion and could be somewhat dangerous. Here we have two imams that were ejected from a flight because their attire suggested that they were Muslim and therefore they were dangerous, and so fellow passengers on the plane felt scared. And so now we move on to discrimination in housing and land use. And so this is the case of Ocean Sweet. He was a black man who bought a house in a predominantly white neighborhood back in the 1970s. He was actually harassed multiple times. There was a huge white mob that formed outside of his house when he moved in, and because he was the only black man living there, they gave him a lot of harassment, discrimination, and he, fearing for his life, actually ended up killing one white male and injuring another, which led to a very landmark civil rights case. And so we have some similarities with Muslims. So here is the Ground Zero Mosque, which was proposed in New York. It was near the location of Ground Zero where 9/11 occurred. And so this mosque was not built because of Islamophobic concerns that there would be Muslims near a site and it would be disgraceful for us to have built a mosque there. Here we have the Chaumont Villas apartments where Muslims were discriminated against. There were 7 Muslim families living here and they brought a case successfully against the owner of the villas who would not make repairs to their apartments because they were Muslim. Here you can't really see the two people, but they were trying to get a campground permit which would allow them to create a campground for Muslims, Muslim kids specifically, to give them somewhat of an educational experience in nature, and it was denied because of community concerns that a terrorist cell would be forming and growing there. Now this is the very famous picture of the Alabama Birmingham House church bombing where 4 innocent young girls were killed and caused huge national uproar back in the 1970s. And so how many people know of Manassas Mosque in the room? Have heard of or have been to Manassas Mosque? So some of you may not know, but Manassas Mosque was actually vandalized and there was a broken glass door and graffiti that was placed all around. And actually the American Civil Liberties Union, or the ACLU, has noted Islamophobic incidents, and 31 out of the 50 states actually have one or more Islamophobic incidences, with the dark red being the most incidences. And now let's look at some of the violent acts against Muslim individuals in comparison to the civil rights movement. So can anybody tell me who this man is? Very famous. Yes?
Martin Luther King?
Yes, correct. Martin Luther King Jr. And this is when he was presenting at the National Mall in front of the White House. And this is another famous case during the Civil Rights Act where Emmett Till, who was a 14-year-old, was killed by two white men for whistling at a white woman. And so does anybody recognize these three individuals? Dia, Yusur, and Razan from the Chapel Hill shootings. These were three Muslim students who were killed just because of a dispute over parking and apparently might be charged as a hate crime. Here we see a Muslim woman who was pushed onto an oncoming train when she was just standing there, another hate crime. Now let's look at some other ways that Muslims are being discriminated against. So this is a picture of the Japanese internment camps where 100,000 Japanese Americans were imprisoned during World War II. Similarly, there have been calls from a mayor in Roanoke, Virginia, and other prominent outspoken critics of Islam that Muslims also be placed in internment camps. Here we have two Jewish individuals who are wearing the Star of David during when Nazi Germany was ruling to identify that they were Jewish. And there have been calls by Donald Trump that Muslims carry around ID cards that distinguish them from a normal citizen as Muslim, which is extremely offensive, and it's extremely offensive that he is polled as one of the highest Republican contenders for the presidential debate. And so I would urge you, looking at all these facts, that you get involved. The slide seems to have there it is. I'd urge you to get involved. Similar to the civil rights movement, there was a legal defense fund that the black community had established to help anybody who was a victim of a civil rights incident. And so I do call that the Muslim community established such a defense fund. So when our Muslim brothers and sisters are caught in a legal battle with incidences such as I showed, we can support them financially as well as morally, because it's our privilege and duty and moral responsibility that we defend them in court, and we get the tide to turn in our favor. And so in our community, we actually have an initiative called the Muslims Are Us initiative, where we're trying to help spread the word against Islamophobia. We have campaigns such as Feed the Homeless, Know Your Neighbor, Support Refugees, Interfaith Action, Kiva, and Habitat for Humanity. I'd like to point out one of the important ones that I think is very beneficial, the Know Your Neighbors campaign. In our own communities, how much are we doing where we live and reside to promote Islam, to show them that we're peaceful people, peaceful individuals, to show them that Muslims do not preach intolerance or do not preach war and violence. And so I think this is a really important one, whether it is just going to introduce yourself to your neighbors, whether it is inviting them over during Ramadan for breaking of the fast, anything like that would be very helpful. We also have a Facebook page, facebook.com/muslimsrus.org, and if you would like to follow us at muslimsrus to receive a lot of tweets about our initiatives, campaign, and relevant news, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
It's a good initiative. Hope and pray that we will not face these kind of things. MashaAllah, it was a good presentation. Allah give you jaza for it. And I request all of you to be please aware of your surrounding. Wherever you are, just look around and be aware of your surrounding, because there is so much emotion and commotion now in the community that anybody can attack. So always be aware of your surrounding, and usually try not to go out alone. Have some company, especially in the evening or night hour, just to protect yourself and your family. Always be aware of your surrounding and be together with whenever you are moving around, because this is real. This is real. We are facing all over, and the media is exploiting it. And so Allah's help is on our side, and inshallah we will overcome it. But these are difficult times for all of us.
Thank you. Yeah, please be safe.